North Korea, reportedly moving an intercontinental ballistic missile toward the west coast. This coming just 2 days after the country conducted its 6th nuclear weapons test to date. This time, reportedly, a hydrogen bomb. Secretary of Defense James Mattis says the U.S. is prepared to deal with the Hermit Kingdom entirely. Watch.
We have the ability to defend ourselves and our allies, South Korea and Japan, from any attack, and our commitments among the allies are ironclad. We are not looking to the total annihilation of a country, namely North Korea. But as I said, we have many options to do so.
Joining me now is the Acton Institute Director of Programs and former Foreign Policy Advisor under President George W. Bush, Paul Bonicelli. Paul, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
What do you make of this aggression from North Korea? You just heard what Secretary Mattis said. We're not looking for the total annihilation of North Korea, but we can do it. Basically, is what he said. Is this not getting communicated to Kim Jong-un?
I think it is, but right now, Kim Jong-un knows that the Chinese are not prepared to do anything to change his behavior. And that is the age-old problem of diplomacy. You have two countries, the United States and China. Our interests are not in line, and it is the job of this president to make China change its interest or understand that its pursuit of an interest where North Korea remains tormenting the United States is ultimately not going to be in their interest, whether that means a huge trade war, whether that means just the pressure of Japan and South Korea becoming nuclear states themselves. But it really is crunch time. I appreciate what Nikki Haley does, but whatever the United Nations does is not going to change anything. This is between China and the United States, and the United States getting China to understand it is not in their interest to continue what the past 30 years have been.
Paul, Kirsten Haglund here. Of course, we have seen a dialogue, come out of both the president and others in the administration recently about a potential, what would effectively be a trade embargo on anyone who does business with North Korea. You mentioned that we need to make China see that this is in their best interest for something to happen with North Korea, something to change. What's your view on these twitterings of potential embargoes? Is that the kind of strength that we need to actually make some change?
I think that what the Chinese government should understand is that the President of the United States is willing to hurt them seriously economically, which of course there's pain for us as well, but there's always much greater pain for a country like China, not just economically, but politically. Xi Jinping is trying to establish himself as Mao Zedong. He's trying to be the most powerful Chinese leader since Mao, and he's on the way to do that. He doesn't want any disruption, so now is the time for the President of the United States, and the window is short, to make it as painful as possible about what the future will be if he doesn't help us change the direction of the North Korean regime. And I think the United States is able to withstand the threat of a trade war and, in fact, the actual beginnings of one if the President of the United States insists upon that. Because it's either that or we face nuclear blackmail for good. And I would add one other thing. China should not think that North Korea with nuclear weapons is never a threat to China. A dictator like Kim Jong-un will see the benefit of being a threat to everyone in the region if he has nuclear weapons he can use at will.
Paul, we're talking about getting much tougher with China, with state-owned enterprises, with banks. But obviously the reason we haven't done this before, this isn't a new issue, the reason we haven't done it before is because there is a cost for the U.S. Can you talk a little bit about what Americans should be prepared for if indeed we get as tough economically with China as we're talking about here?
I think a reason we haven't done it before, though, Brian, is that we've had feckless diplomacy. We've had naive people in power that convinced presidents who should have known otherwise that we could manage this with pure diplomacy, not backed up by force. As to the pain, yeah, I think that if you tell Americans the iPhone will be delayed, it'll take longer, it'll cost more, a lot of that's going to be painful, but the polls are clear. Americans are very concerned about Kim Jong-un having nuclear weapons, and the Chinese have even more reason to be worried about a harm to their economy. China is not a stable country. I think you had Gordon Chang on earlier. He's been talking about this for years. China is not in a position to weather a lot of economic hardships, and our government needs to make that clear. Jim Mattis is making that clear on the military side. I hope privately Secretary Tillerson and others are making that clear to the Chinese government.
You talk about feckless diplomacy. This problem is now in the hands of Donald Trump to deal with. He's going to get the credit or the blame for how this plays out. But isn't this really on previous U.S. presidents? President Clinton, frankly, President Bush himself, and also President Obama, for not being tough enough on this regime and not taking hard actions earlier before we got to this point.
I think that's exactly right. I worked for one of those, George W. Bush, whom I honor greatly. But I think he made the same mistake that the other presidents, and I think President Obama made it much worse because of the timing, to assume that a guy like Kim Jong-un, before that his father, had any interest in not having the nuclear weapons that he needs to protect himself from everybody around him. Not his own people. He doesn't need nuclear weapons for that, but all those regimes around him. He's the problem. We should not forget this is a regime that is the problem, and it has always been the problem. And China played a game, and now they have a rabid dog that they can't control very well, so it's crunch time.
Paul, you make a lot of important points.